Hi, you're watching Bike Routes of Brum, a channel dedicated to finding safe cycle routes across Birmingham. In this video we'll be cycling from Northfield to Bourneville, and in this route we will be using the Merits Brook Greenway, and it should take about 16 minutes to cycle. Now, it's not the most direct route between the two areas, however it's probably the nicest way to get between them, and if you're not in a rush it's probably the one that I'd pick. I've put a link to the route into the description below so you can download the GPX file for yourself. Now we're starting our route in the centre of Northfield, and we're going to cross over there and onto Bell Lane. Now I think with Bell Lane I decided to hop onto the curb here, but you could probably just poke up there where those lights are. Now it gets a little bit confusing around here. I'm not sure if you're actually allowed to cross this bit on a bike. There is a cycle lane on the other side, and there's a cycle lane on the side that we've just left, so I assume you probably can. If you were uneasy about going over that way, you could just cycle down this road on the other side and cross over at that toucan crossing that you can just see there. But either way, you'll come back down and drop onto Vineyard Road. Now this road is quite steep going down, and there's big speed bumps here, which means that cars aren't going to bomb it after you. But if you haven't got any suspension or anything like I don't on my bike, and I did have my son on the back, and I don't think he was particularly happy about getting jolted around every time he went over one of those big bumps. But they do make it probably a little bit safer to cycle along. It also means that if you're doing this in reverse, it's a horrible way to end it. But we're going to cut through this little park. I couldn't work out if there was actually a name for it or not. But we're going to use that basically to cut the corner. And once we go around here through these bollards and down, we're going to cross over this road here, and we arrive onto the Merits Brook Greenway. And we're going to follow this then all the way into Bourneville. Now we're joining the Merritt Brook Greenway at Hill Park. I think the actual start of the route is kind of at the other end of the park there, so you're not really missing out on much by joining it where we did. I think just if you wanted to do the whole lot, it doesn't really go anywhere. I think that's part of the problem with this route. It's really nice, but it doesn't really, it just links these two bits. Now we're going to cross over here on Merritt's Hill and rejoin, weave through these gates. One of the good things that I noticed on the route is it's really easy to get through those little turnstile bits. So if you've got kind of a non-traditional bike, like a big cargo bike or something, it should be fairly easy to get through. Quite often when you're trying to get through those tiny little gates, it can be really hard, even on a normal bike. So if you've got a cargo bike or a trike or something like that, this shouldn't be an issue for you. Now, one of the downsides of filming at this time of year is that it never looks particularly great as you cycle along, but I can imagine this summer this route's really nice to cycle along. Now we come to this toucan crossing over Bell Hill. Now if you'd been brave at the very start, you could have gone straight over those crossroads and you would have ended up here. So that's one way to cut out a massive chunk of this route if you didn't really care. But we're going to go onto Manor Farm Park here. Now, despite living in South Birmingham and having lived, kind of in the area for quite a long time, I've never been to this park before. I started filming this, and I was actually really impressed with it. Again, doesn't look great at this time of year, with everything kind of dead. But I can imagine in the summer when it's actually pretty, this would be a really nice way to cycle. One thing I did notice about this route in general is that it's not very well lit. There's no lights through any of these parks, so if you're commuting in the dark, it's one thing to be considerate of. Now we cross over this bridge. I'm assuming that is Merits Brook that we've crossed over. It seems to change names about 4 different times from what I can see. I was trying to follow it on Google and try and work out, it starts at Merits Brook where we joined the route, but then it turns into like 4 different names. I assume it's the same bit. Now one great bit about this route is how well maintained this section is. As we cycle all the way from the start past this pond here, I was really impressed. Cycle lanes and paths in Birmingham aren't always kept to a particularly good standard, and as you'll see, coming up that this route also isn't always like that. But this section that seems to be maintained by the city council has been really good. I think one of the issues that this route has is that it changes ownership throughout. Now we're going to take a left here onto Willbrook Grove and follow this round as we approach the A38. Now, as I was saying, the ownership of the route seems to change a little bit. One of the things that's great about Bourneville is how, almost like a storybook village it can be. One of the downsides to that is that I think sections of this cycle route are owned by the Bourneville Trust, and as such they just don't seem to have maintained it at all. And we'll see that as we cross over the A38 here and we dip into this little path here. This is the part that's actually maintained by the Bourneville Trust, and you can see the difference in quality between the two bits. I'm glad I cycled this in reverse, because there's bits of this that I wouldn't have noticed the first time round. It could do with a good sweep, I think, but maybe in the summer when there's not leaves everywhere and you can actually see what you're doing, this would be a really nice bit to cycle along as well. But we cut over here and we cross Cobb Lane onto this little bit of Cobb Lane. Now, for those of you who haven't been to Bourneville before, this is us really starting into Bourneville proper, and you can see what I mean by it being kind of like a storybook village. Bourneville itself was created by the Cadbury brothers as a place for the factory employees to live and work. Now, Bourneville is really quite unique in terms of the rest of Birmingham, and I really like it. I know it costs an absolute fortune to live here because it is so much like a storybook village, I suppose. But I think it's got a unique charm to it, and part of that is the fact that the Bourneville Trust are very strict about what you can and can't do with your house and stuff like that. Now, the Valley Parkway here, that building to the right is where they keep a load of model boats, and I think the pond to the left is where they race model boats. I know, having walked past, sometimes you can see the gates open, and the doors open to the property, and you can see all the massive ships inside. And I think maybe on a Saturday they quite often race them around, so if you're in the area, it's definitely worth checking out. Now, if I was to do this route again, I would have just gone left that road and followed it across. It's not that busy, and it will make your life a lot easier getting to the end of the route. But I decided to follow the actual Merits Brook Greenway, which takes us into Bourneville Park. Now, to be honest, this is a bit of a nightmare to cycle through. I wouldn't advise it. You can see how busy it is. I know it doesn't look particularly busy right now, but as we get closer to Linden Road, you'll see that it does get a bit busy with people walking. It's not that wide a path. I definitely felt weird cycling through here, like I shouldn't have been doing it. But this is where the Merits Brook Greenway apparently goes. So, follow it if you want. But yeah. But we're going to come out the park again. Not sure if you're actually meant to cycle along this bit of Linden Road, but this is apparently the route. But we're going to cross over this crossing that's definitely not a toucan crossing, and we come to the bike stands at the end of Sycamore Road, where we're going to end. Thanks again for watching the video. I hope that you found it useful. If you have any other ideas for alternate routes or want to mention anything that I've forgotten, please feel free to comment below. I try to upload these videos as much as I can, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any routes. Thanks again for watching.